What's going on, guys? This is Burris. I want to talk to you today about a real lightweight SPR mount and scope option that I believe is probably the lightest weight on the market that you can find, and that's extremely serviceable, durable, and has a great performance. And what we have here on the table is the Vortex Viper PST 2.5 to 10. We have the recently reviewed SWFA SS 3 to 9 with an Aero Precision mount. And then we have this Badger Ordnance mount here, which I'm going to be using coming up here soon in a bunch of videos. And on the Vortex here, we have an American Defense mount. As you can see, it's a quick release, and we're going to talk about that as well. So I'm also going to roll in some pictures here of some other scope options and some mount options that are available. And we're going to talk about pretty much the majority of the ones out there you're going to hear about, and the majority of the ones that you're going to see when you go out there and look to put together your SPR or your DMR or your Mark 12 variant rifle. So when it comes to weight, what you don't want to sacrifice is durability. You don't want to sacrifice performance. And the difference between weights of mounts is relatively important. For instance, if you look at this Aero Precision mount, you can see the walls here and how thin they are in comparison with this Badger Ordnance. You can see it's definitely a lot thicker for the Badger Ordnance than it is for the Aero Precision. What does that mean? That means you're going to get a more rigid and a more precise shot, repeatedly and over time versus the Aero Precision. In theory, that's what you're going to get. Does it happen in real life? You're probably not going to see it unless you're going out to extreme distances. Fortunately for us, in an SPR setup, you're looking at probably 600 yards and in. So you're not going to come across the great variables that you'll come across going out past 1,000 yards. And setting the priorities for this video, I thought about, people are gonna harp on the fact that it's a lightweight mount, here or there, anywhere. And, lightweight, I think, has somewhat of a bad rap. Lightweight can be attributed to not being as durable. It can be attributed to not being as, rigid. And that's what definitely one thing you want to have when you have a scope set up in any sort. So thinking more practically, 90% of the people watching this video are not going to war. So you can cut that right off at the front of this, thinking about, oh, well, he's talking about a lightweight option, so we're not really going to talk about something that's legit that can, I can take the war rifle. Don't worry, if there's a Red Dawn situation, you'll be able to grab this rifle and use it as you need to. There's no worries there, in my opinion. So let's look at the different options that are available, starting with the ones on the table right here. So let's talk about the first option, which we didn't talk about weight in the review very much. This is the SWFA SS 3 to 9 by 42 scope. This is a very lightweight scope. It comes in at 19 ounces. Attached to it is the Aero Precision. This is their SPR mount. It comes in at 3.3 ounces. So, I don't normally do this. I normally do bump the camera like a professional because I am highly qualified as a video maker. But I'm going to grab the scale. I don't normally do this, but for this it makes a lot of sense because you're using combinations of parts and how much they weigh. So this one's coming in at 23.8 ounces. Okay, that is extremely lightweight. A lot of the scopes on the market today you're going to find are actually over that weight. So for a combination, this is an extremely lightweight combination. The way that it attaches onto the rail, I like a lot. The fact that it's a one hole, link. It's not that there's, one or two. The fact that it's lightweight, you want to make sure that you have that attachment to the rail. It attaches well. I've taken it off and on many times. Recently painted this whole thing, and it served me well. Easily shooting, 3/4 inch groups, no problem whatsoever. And it works very well, like I said. So let's move over to something like this. Say you want to go with a quick detach. This is the American Defense quick detach, and what you're looking at here is a 8.4 ounce mounting option. As you can see, it's a little bit thicker on the rings compared to this Aero Precision. Try to get a side-by-side shot there. You can see the difference in the sides. And it's just overall, it's just more robust. It is going to give you extra weight though because you're dealing with a quick detach. So let's see how much this comes in at compared to the SWFA, which was 23.8. Put this on here, 27.3. So you're adding a little bit of ounce, but you're getting that quick detach, which is great. Still, at 27 ounces, you're coming in under what some and most scopes weigh all by themselves. So as far as the other scopes that are out there on the market, these scopes right here are under $1,000. So for under $1,000, what you're going to get is probably something like the Weaver 3 to 15 by 50 Tactical. Okay, that's a 27-ounce scope all by itself. So you have to take into consideration the fact that you're going to be adding, compared to these scopes, you know, just for the scope itself, you're going to be adding about 8 ounces of weight, which is a ½ pound. So just for the scope alone, you're going to add ½ pound. When you look at the Falcon Menace 4 to 14 by 44, which is a great option for $360, that also is 27 ounces. So just for the scope alone, you're going to be adding ½ pound. So the main question is it worth the performance? Is there any performance gain by going with a different scope than these two? Because you're going to be adding ½ pound of weight to your rifle. Another option that comes in just under $1,000 is the Burris 3 to 15 by 50 XTR2. This is actually 30 ounces. So you're even more than ½ pound over. So, you know, the main thing is, do I feel as though these scopes can compete with the other scopes, which are a little bit more pricey, but they add over ½ pound? And I truly do. More so the SWFA. The scope is, you know, it's really a tack driver as far as, you know, precision goes for the price. The Falcon Menace is a, you know, around a $400 price. This is around $600. This is under $600. This is around $700. So it'll give you a different, you know, perspective on what you're getting. So when you go over $1,000, you're going to look at the Leuopold 3.5 to 10 by 40. That's their Mark IV. They call it their Long Range Tactical, or LR/T. This scope is $800 more than this SWFA right here, which is, like I said, it's premium. It's really in the price range, it can't be touched. And that one's 19 ounces. So it has the weight, but you're gonna spend $800 more. And I personally don't feel as though, you know, it's worth the extra money to go from this SWFA. So then when you move into the over $2,000 price range, what you're gonna get into is the more military-based stuff. US Optics, Steiner, heavy stuff. You know, for US Optics, they're 3.2 to 17 by 44. It's called their LR17. You're looking at, you know, 32 ounces, which is dramatically more. And you also have the Steiner 3 to 15 by 50. They have it, they call it their M5XI. It's also 32 ounces. So dramatically more weight. But asking yourself the question yet again, because SWFA also makes, you know, higher magnification stuff you're looking for. You don't have to go just 3x9. So don't take this video as, you know, magnification talk. This is more scope talk, because every line has different magnifications, obviously, but I have the 3x9. So, you know, when you take that into consideration, you're adding a lot of weight to your rifle for, like I said, for 90% of the people who are going to watch this aren't going to war. So what's your reasoning in doing that? Personally, I'd rather cut some weight and get a great product. And honestly, in this situation, save a little bit of money. When you get into the mounts are a lot more, you know, they're closer together as far as weight goes. And what you're going to see is, you know, for this Badger right here, sure, this is going to be an extremely rigid mount, and I'm excited about using it because I like Badger Ordnance and what they make. This is 7.5 ounces. So just adding this on versus this Aero Precision, you're going to be adding on, you know, 4 ounces of weight. Not horrible if you're looking to get a little bit more sturdy of a mount, because it's going to be more, you know, sturdy, more durable than what this Aero Precision mount is. So that's not a horrible, you know, thing. So let's take a look at the SPR scope mounting options. We looked at the scopes. Let's take a look at the SPR, you know, scope mounts that are out there. You know, one of the ones I think is underutilized as far as, you know, people talking about it is a GG&G. You know, at 5.5 ounces, it's a good, you know, in between. A lot of the scope mounts that are out there around the 7 ounce mark. This Aero Precision is 3.3. So in between, and as far as price goes, you know, you're looking at, you know, the 5.5 ounce GG&G. One that's always talked about is the Larue Tactical, which is also a quick release, and it's around 7 ounces. So you have a 7 ounce scope there, or scope mount. You have the American Defense right here, like I said, which is the heaviest, which is 8.4 ounces. And then you have the SWFA, which is a 7.5 ounce. It's also a quick release. And you have one of the more interesting ones on the market, the Alamo 4 Star, which is 7.3 ounces. So with all the different options out there, what do I feel as though is, you know, one of the better options out there for ultra lightweight? Well, personally, it's the one I put together originally, and it's the reason I put it together originally. The SWFA 3x9 scope with the Aero Precision mount. If you're worried about the mount at 3.3 ounces and you still want to not add that much weight, I say you go up to the GG&G and you keep the scope mount. You're going to add 2 ounces, but you're still going to be under the weight of what most scopes alone weigh. So you're still going to have a really, really lightweight scope mount option, and you're going to have a lot of, you know, rigidity. So like I said, there's a lot of different ways you can, you know, go about it. You can add this to that, that to this, and move it around, but you got to look at price. So a lot of the stuff out there is around $150 for mounts. This Aero Precision mount right here is about $95. So every other scope mount that you've seen here is at least $50 more than what this one is. So for this package right here, you're gonna get into this scope and mount combination for under $700. And like I said, I can be shooting 3/4 inch groups all day long, and better all day long with this setup. Of course, you gotta have the, you know, precision rifle to shoot it with. You know, with this scope mount option, you have the American Defense mount, and you have the Vortex Viper. You're gonna get into this for under $900. So is this worth more, or is this worth, you know, the extra price than what this is? In my opinion, it's not. I've really come to enjoy using this SWFA, you know, scope. I really like the Aero Precision mount. If anything on here, and you know, this is one change that might happen, I would change out to, you know, something like a Badger Ordnance you know, mount, or throw this American Defense mount on there, add a few more ounces, you know. But as far as the scope goes itself, there is nothing better for this price range. Under $1,000, I really don't feel as though you can get something better. So that's my choice for lightweight options. Like I said, 23.8 ounces. Can you beat 23.8 ounces for a scope mount option? And you really can't, in my opinion. You can go out and buy a cheaper scope, a lighter weight scope than this. You can go out and buy a cheaper mount. You're not gonna save any weight, I can almost guarantee that. But as far as the scope goes, you definitely can cut weight and get a cheaper scope. You know, smaller scope, as far as, you know, dimensions go, turrets go. You can do that. There are cheaper scopes out there that weigh less, but you're really cutting yourself short if you're in the SPR, you know, build, you know, environment. So if you're looking for a durable, budget-friendly option as far as scopes go, and you want to cut a lot of weight, but still keep durability and performance, etc., I really don't think you can beat this combination. It has really, you know, proven to me through the tons of rounds I've put down range with this combination on my rifle that you know, it's truly hard to beat this option at the price point of under $700 for this combination. So if you guys have any questions or anything, go ahead and let me know. If you guys have experience with anything that's discussed here today, go ahead and put it in the comments and let us know what your thoughts are with that particular part and how it's worked for you. That way we can get some, you know, data on you know, how it's working out there in the field. And until next time, later.